Alright, chapter 3, section 3, solving inequalities again. Today you're going to use multiplication and division. So we'll just start with some examples like problem 1 on page 192. X over 3 less than negative 2. Alright, remember from a couple weeks ago, if you got a variable over a number, you got to get rid of the number in the denominator, so you multiply each side by 3, right? Times 3. The 3's cancel, and x is less than negative 6. Okay, if you're asked to graph it, graph it. So on the number line, you put your negative 6, you put your 0. Open or closed? Open. Going which way? To the left. Good. Now, what you need to be careful of today is stuff like w over negative 2 greater than or equal to 5. You okay? Alright, stop then. Stick your hand in the air. You know what I mean? What are you confused on? Okay, what's being done to the variable here? It's being divided by 3, right? So, in order to solve for a variable, the first thing you do is you look at it and you say, what's being done to the variable? It's being divided by 3. You do the opposite of that. So the way to solve for x here is to multiply each side of the inequality by 3. When you multiply the left side by 3, do you see how they cancel out? And it leaves the variable by itself. Okay, and then negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Yeah, you multiply both sides by 3. Watch, it'll come back to you. We did it a couple weeks ago. Over here, what are you going to do first? You're going to multiply by negative 2. Now, this is where you got to be careful. You multiply by negative 2 and times negative 2. And some kind of little alarm's got to go off in your head to remind yourself to do what? Change the direction of the inequality. These two cancel. W is now less than or equal to negative 10. Okay?
If there's a negative on the side where the variable is, you got to switch it.
If there's a negative, the rule is that we said yesterday, if you multiply or divide both sides by a negative, you got to change the direction of the inequality. Okay? Hunter, are your eyes open?
Yeah.
Were they?
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me? Okay. Now, what would you do first? Okay, if you multiply both sides by 4, the 4's cancel. And you bring down your negative m, and it's greater than or equal to negative 12, isn't it? Are you done?
No.
Now you've got to divide by negative 1. Alright, and m is going to be less than or equal to positive 12. Divided both sides by a negative, so you got to change the direction of the inequality. What if the negative sign is right in front of? No, this doesn't mean they're both negative. It means the whole fraction's negative. If the whole fraction's negative, it means only one of them is negative. You with me?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But look, if you multiply this side by negative 2, What's a negative times a negative? A positive. So what does the b become? It becomes positive. And what do you want it to be? You want it to be positive. All right? Change the direction. And that should be a negative 2, right? And this is negative 20.
So, like, if you're multiplying both sides by negative, you can switch it?
Yes.
Okay, what if you just multiply one side by? Or would that not happen?
You're not going to just multiply one side by a negative. Correct. Now, look back here for a second. See this problem? What could you have done, or what could we have done in the first step to avoid this step? If you would have just multiplied both sides up here by negative 4, those would have canceled, and this negative would have gone away too, wouldn't it? Because a negative times a negative, the whole fraction's negative. So you would have gotten m less than or equal to positive 12. Yes?
So it doesn't matter whether it's in front of the fraction or next to a number, you can still choose which one you want to be negative.
Exactly. This can be very confusing. Negative b over 3, b over negative 3, and negative b over 3, those are all the same. They are all negative fractions. Okay? You have to recognize that. In all of these cases, what would be your first step? Multiply by negative 3. Okay? And you would be left with a positive b sitting by itself. Okay? It doesn't matter where that negative is. Top, bottom, or right in front of. Dan.
What if you get a problem like that? Negative 5 times 2 is greater than
Negative what?
negative 5 times 2 is greater than
To m? Then negative 10 is greater than or equal to m. Did I multiply both sides by a negative? No. Only time you change the direction is if you multiply both sides of the inequality by a negative. How about 12 is less than or equal to negative 2/3 x? Fraction in front of the variable. Anybody remember what to do? Multiply by the reciprocal. So if you multiply by negative 3 over 2, and you multiply by negative 3 over 2, what are you left with on the whole right side? Just an x. Change the direction. Bless you. You got a negative times a positive, right? So your answer over here is negative. 3 times 12 is 2 times 1 is 2. Well, negative 18 would be the answer. Because 36 over 2 is 18. Alright? But you had a negative fraction in front of the variable. So you multiply both sides by a negative reciprocal. And that changes the direction of the inequality. What's that? At the same time. Yeah. But if you can just understand these concepts now, it's going to save you a lot of headaches at the end of the class and in Algebra 2. Okay? Got it? Questions? These problems, the number calculations aren't very complicated today. What's going to be complicated is going to be negatives and figuring out if you got to switch the inequality or not. That's where you're going to have to be careful. These are all one-step equations using multiplication and division, but you got to pay attention to the signs. So page 195, you're going to do 8 through 26. Probably need some word problems to go with that.
already confusing how to shoot.
Good. Let's do 49 and 50 as well. And some more fraction problems? Oh.
Yes.
All right, you got a quiz tomorrow. Study guide will be on Edline. Yes.